so I might start proceedings and get us underway, conscious that we've got an hour to spare and a lot to pack into that time space. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jane Paramore. I'm Sustainability Partnership Manager here at APCO. Some of you may be familiar with my face on this screen. The first thing I would like to do today is just make an acknowledgement of the traditional owners of the land on which I reside and work in Redfern, in the heart of the Gadigal land of the Eora Nation. I want to pay my respects to the elders past, present and future, and extend a very warm welcome to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people who are joining us today and who bring a vitally important voice of stewardship to all this sustainability dialogue that we are hosting these days. So very welcome to joining us today. I'd also like to acknowledge the APCO team that sit behind all this this work that happens here every week and bring these sessions to life. They make an amazing effort regularly on this stuff, and makes my job of coming up here and leading you through the process very easy. So I'd just like to thank them as well. And I'd just like to reach out to all those people in Melbourne and Victoria who are in the midst of a new lockdown, and just extend our sympathies to you, and we hope that it passes quickly and we see some positive results coming out of the state very soon. So our thoughts are with you, and keep strong and safe. So today we are on a new topic. We haven't covered a lot of this in our discussions of late, but one of the things that we are seeing more and more interest in at the moment is reusable packaging. And we wanted to look today at some of the challenges around organisations implementing reuse in their business models, and try and address some of the questions that are emerging in this space at the moment, particularly around things like pandemic considerations and those sorts of questions. So we've got a few common points that we were looking to cover off today, and they'll form a bit of the basis of our discussion. And we've got some great speakers joining us as well to take you through some of the work that they're doing in some different spaces across the market at the moment to implement reuse. So as you probably know, APCO's been working around a whole strategy to addressing the packaging challenges that we have moving towards the 2025 national packaging targets. And of course, reuse has been identified as one of the key areas. We put a bit of a target against that, similarly to our soft plastics target. It's a bit aspirational at the moment because we are in a bit of a state of flux with the reuse models around, and we need to do a bit of work to clarify where we actually are and at least set an objective of where we'd like to get to. So that's a lot of the motivation behind some of the work that we're doing in this area, and we've got some projects in that space that are supplementing that work as well. So looking at this in terms of where we've come from and where we're going to, back in 2019, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and the World Economic Forum, the New Plastics Economy launched the Reuse book at the World Economic Forum meeting, and it discussed a lot of the benefits and opportunities that exist around reuse. There are a whole raft of things that we can look at here today, but we're going to focus on some people that are actually doing work in this space. But certainly there are a number of good sides to looking at reuse models, and we think it's a great opportunity to address some of the more difficult challenges that we're facing in the packaging space at the moment. One of the key things that came out of that reuse book was the quadrant model in terms of the 4 different types of reuse that we can work with, particularly from a consumer perspective. We're doing a bit of work in extending this out into a B2B environment as well at the moment. But there are a number of case studies in that book that give us a bit of insight into the 4 different models. We have 3 of those covered today. The 4th, which is the refill on the go, a lot of you are probably familiar with when you think about your reusable coffee cups that you take to the cafe with you. That's the refill on the go kind of model. But we have some other considerations as well, and we've got 3 great speakers who are going to give you a bit of a different perspective on 3 of the other 3 quadrants of that model. So we're going to take you through some of those different ideas and have a little look at how those sorts of things are being implemented within businesses. So the first person that I'd like to introduce to you today is Jean Bailliard, who is the General Manager at TerraCycle here in Australia. Jean was very involved with TerraCycle and the Loop project in France, and has come out to Australia with the intent of launching that program here, and is working very closely with Woolworths in partnership to deliver the project here in Australia. Jean has been working in this space for quite a while, and we're very pleased to have him here today to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that Loop has faced and how he's worked in that very collaborative way, I guess, with TerraCycle and the other businesses that he's dealt with over the last a few years to get this program up and running around the world. So I'll hand over to you, Jean.
Thank you so much, Jane, for having us. Big pleasure to be with you, talk about reuse, and be alongside Jamie and Brent as well on this topic. So, like you said, I'll introduce Loop, which is a zero-waste shopping platform. So completely zero waste, done in partnership with FMCG companies as well as retailers. And the way it works for consumers is that you're able to order your day-to-day products online. You get them delivered to you in a reusable tote bag. And when you're done with your product, you just get your tote bag with your empty packaging picked up at the next delivery. And then Loop is in charge of emptying those packaging and making sure that they are clean and they can be sent back to the brands for refill. So Loop as a platform is very new. It was announced at the World Economic Forum early last year and gained a lot of media attention. 1 year later, we have 400 products in the Loop platform. 2 weeks ago, we launched it with Tesco. We're about to expand it with in Japan and Canada, and we are in the process of launching it with Woolworths next year in Australia. So even though the Loop platform is very new, the concept is not. So it's borrowed from the past. We were inspired by the milkman model. I was probably too young to experience that, but what that meant is that the packaging belonged to the brand and to the manufacturer. So there is no restriction in terms of packaging costs. It's not single use, and what that means is the manufacturers has an incentive to make that packaging durable. And that unlocks so many possibilities to, first and foremost, make beautiful design, so objectively make products with a much higher design, but also unlocking new features. So that's one of our most iconic products, the Häagen-Dazs ice cream tub. So it's double walled. You can hold it and not have your hands frozen. So apparently in the US, people eat that in one serve in their bed. So it was important to isolate the cold, and there's inner layer, which means that the ice cream would stay frozen longer. So big win for the consumers, like better experience. And the same principle can be applied to different categories, whether it's laundry detergent or dishwashing liquid and so on. And because of this nicer design, we saw that consumers started placing their products on their kitchen benchtop, which was a win for the brands because the product was no longer hidden under the sink, but the consumer thought that it was a nice to have. We also know that consumers tend to empty their products into nicer packaging, so why not give them that beautiful packaging in the first place? Interestingly, in a normal environment, conditioners are sold at 1-to-2 ratios against shampoo. So for every 2 bottles of shampoo, you would sell 1 bottle of conditioner. And what we noticed when we launched the Loop platform is that they were sold at a 1-to-1 ratio, which was a surprise. So we surveyed consumers and tried to understand why, and they said they look good together. And that was a realization for us when launching the platform, is that yes, mainstream consumers want to do the right thing, they want to be more sustainable, but at the end of the day, what comes before that is whether the aesthetics is there. So the aesthetics, design, but also the product performance and the price. That's an example of the next iteration of the Pantene shampoo and conditioner bottles, where aging is actually integrated in the design of the product. So you see the little circles here would change color over time as the packaging gets scratches, so that it ages beautifully. so we saw that brands like innovate and change their packaging, but it could also be back to basic with very iconic packaging, like the Coca-Cola traditional bottle. And according to Coca-Cola, soda tastes better in glass. So Loop is a material agnostic platform. We have engineered plastic packaging, we have glass packaging, and also stainless steel packaging. We work with major FMCGs and also like small startups. Could be two entrepreneurs in a garage just making a good product. So for us, it was important to engage with packaging manufacturers because they are also part of the innovation. So the example you see here is the world's first reusable shampoo bottle that was developed by APCO in Europe. That's another example of product innovation where you have the all-the click toothbrush. So once the toothbrush is dead, you can just replace the head, and the head is recycled by TerraCycle, which is Loop's parent company. Again, enforcing the idea of it's a zero waste platform, so everything is either reused or recycled. And final example of product innovation, the Unilever tooth tabs. It's dehydrated toothpaste, so you get just the right amount to brush your teeth, and also doesn't require any water, so it's a big saving on the environment as well. So in the Loop platform, we rely on what brands are good at. It's designing and manufacturing good quality products. They sell them to retailers whose specialty is to build assortments and making those products available to consumers. Once consumers return their empties, again, we work with best-in-class companies, whether it's DHL for the logistics, so checking of the empty packaging, consolidation, storage. The empties are then washed before being sent back to the brands for refill, and therefore closing the loop. So before even COVID, the consumer safety was a major criteria for us as we started the platform. And that's why we decided to partner with like leading companies like Ecolab, which has a massive reputation in that field. They have very strict SOPs, they are certified, and we also get audited by the PepsiCo and Unilever of the world, which tend to have much stricter requirements than local regulations. So what COVID taught us is I think people realized that they were making an impact on the environment. We talked about animals going back to cities, the smoke disappearing from cities, and we could see Himalaya mountains in the north of India. So people really realized that they realized the impact that they had. And in fact, according to a recent survey in the UK, 80% of consumers are willing to make a big lifestyle change to tackle climate change. And the top two changes that they mentioned was 1, wasting less, and 2, avoiding plastic. And that's placed before reducing their meat consumption or doing a switch to green energy. But in parallel, what we saw with COVID is that people were using more single-use plastic, and rightly so, to avoid any risk of contamination. They contaminated more the curbside recycling streams, and most importantly, the prices of oil went down dramatically. In fact, they went to the negative, which means that oil companies would pay their clients to take old barrels. So all those factors mean that that was a massive hit for the recycling industry, which and it's very hard for them to compete when the prices of oil are so low because their business model as plastic recyclers is to provide a commodity which is an oil-based product. So in that context, we think that reuse systems will be a key answer to the waste crisis that we are in at the moment, and Loop will be particularly relevant as it provides convenience. So first to the supermarkets, they don't have to manage install refill stations, and to the consumers that don't have to refill at home or do the cleaning themselves. It's all done professionally and in a safe way. So in a world where disposability and single-use products are so prevalent, and even more so during COVID, our vision is to give access to reuse and return options, not only at your supermarkets, but wherever you are, whether it's your at your office, through your municipal bins, to your local cafe and restaurant. So we're building this network for reuse, and Loop ambition is to help build this future of reuse. Thank you so much.
John, thank you very much. There are a few questions coming through here from our audience. I'm going to hold those to the end of the session, if you don't mind. And Jean, if you're able to stay with us until the end of the session, hopefully we can get to some of those when we get to that point. In the meantime, I am very pleased to introduce you to Brent Vrdoljak. Brent, I hope I've said your surname the right way there, who comes to us from Nature's Organics, which is, of course, an APCO member. And Brent has been with Nature's Organics for about 18 months, leading the marketing for the home care portfolio. Prior to this, he'd been working with multinational corporations in home electronics and appliances, so a bit of a change of direction in coming into the Nature's Organics business, but very pleased, he says, to be with the small business and getting his hands dirty at that sustainability end of the spectrum. Everything they do is in-house, so he's had an opportunity, this project, to get very involved in the whole from concept through to reality process of bringing the new product to market. So without saying too much more about it, I will hand over control to Brent, and he can talk you through the latest in the Nature's Organics range.
Awesome, thank you, Jane, and yeah, thanks Sean and Jamie for coming along today. This is really exciting. The Loop stuff is awesome. I can't wait to see it roll out into Woolies. So I guess what we're doing is similar in so many ways, but a little bit different as well. So I'm just going to run through a couple of different things. So I thought it would be good to give you all an intro to Nature's Organics. So Nature's Organics is a family-owned Australian company. We've been around for 30, 40 years, something like that, producing locally in Melbourne. And you'd probably be familiar with our brand Earth Choice. That's our flagship brand. One of the biggest in the kind of eco cleaning segment, and we have a portfolio of personal care products as well. So I'm going to quickly run through an overview of our new brand Cove, which we've just launched, and yeah, I'm excited to share the story of how it's all come together. But a bit of a background, I guess. Earth Choice, as I said, it's a big brand, but still a small player in the total FMCG space. If you look at our portfolio of products in Earth Choice, we have laundry care, dish, washing liquids, and a cleaning range as well. So pretty broad when most of our competitor brands are really a single brand in a single category. Earth Choice was, or the owner of the business, one of the first to innovate around using plant-based ingredients. So he actually found a way to derive a surfactant cleaning product from aloe vera back when everybody was using petrochemicals. And and Terry, the founder, has led a really great change in the industry towards plant-based ingredients. And if you look in the supermarket aisle now, in the cleaning aisle, there's a lot of talk about what's inside the bottle. There's not so much talk about the bottles themselves. So we're looking at our roadmap and our plans and doing an audit across our range around everything that we do, what is our biggest environmental impact, whether that's, you know, shipping our products around, whether that's running our factory, all those kind of things. So one of the key things that stood out when we looked at our product specifically was obviously plastic. So we use Australian recycled plastic. Now, the Australian point's really important because when you know, throw the Coke bottle in the recycling bin, you know, on Tuesday night, you know, that material is being used to create Earth Choice products. Compared to, you know, perhaps importing from other nations. So, you know, fantastic in terms of recycled plastic. We use over 2,000 tonnes across the range every year, which is a huge impact on the Australian recycling system, and, you know, really positive. But, you know, we always want to go further. So we did an audit and we had a look at what are the hot spots in our range where we just can't use plastic, whether maybe the technology doesn't exist or there's too many components in certain complex pieces, and that led us to our cleaning range. So our cleaning range, you'd be familiar with them. They're your, you know, sort of spray, bench spray product, your shower spray type products, those sort of things. So our cleaning range, we use 100% recycled materials in our bottles, and they're 100% recyclable. So again, you know, really great story from a recycling perspective. The trigger or the spray function on the end is not recyclable. So that's made of a mix of different materials and is made from virgin materials as well. So that's probably one of our biggest hotspots from Earth Choice, from an environmental impact perspective, about how much virgin and non-recyclable plastic we're using. That's our biggest problem across our whole portfolio. So we set out on a mission to try and fix this. Now, if you bear with me, I'll give you some maths to do. So on a standard product, you've got 64 grams of plastic total in one of these trigger products. The bottle weighs about 42 grams, and the trigger weighs about 22 grams. And these numbers are important, so write them down, hang on to it, we'll come back to it. So if you look at Earth Choice, just us alone, we produce over 1 million of these products every year. Over 1 million of these trigger products are used in Australia every year, and 1 million of those triggers are ending up in landfill. That's literally tons of plastic. That 22 grams number, that's, you know, 22,000 kilograms of plastic, non-recyclable plastic. So, you know, the most obvious question that you can ask is, okay, well, how do we get people to reuse their triggers, right? That makes sense. And for years, businesses pitched to the supermarkets, major supermarkets, you know, a new product, which is, hey, take the trigger away and just put a little cap on the end. You know, the consumer can keep the trigger at home and just buy the refill. You know, it makes a lot of sense. You know, what made sense to us, it didn't make any sense to the retailers, because of course shelf space is incredibly valuable, and it's just, you know, such a small change that their return on investment, they just couldn't justify it. So when we were looking at this project, we went back to that question. We thought, well, you know, if we can ask a better question, maybe we're going to get a better answer. And the question we asked is, so why aren't people reusing their bottles? And, you know, intuition would say maybe it's availability, maybe it's just laziness, maybe the right products aren't out there, you know, who knows. So what we did, we ran a whole bunch of interviews and sessions with consumers, one-on-one. I sat down with so many different people that we'd organised and ran focus groups myself and tried to get insights into why people perhaps aren't, you know, reusing. And ultimately, you know, you get a whole bunch of different answers, but we kept hitting the same sort of thing. It's like, well, it costs $3. Why would I keep it? You know, I don't keep my, you know, empty Coke bottle and refill that. You know, what's the point? And that's what happens when you have such a huge supply chain and a commodity product, is that people just get used to, you know, a certain way of life. So, you know, we set out on this mission to say, okay, well, the problem is, how do we actually add value back into the materials, and to, you know, inspire people to actually change their daily habits and make a positive impact, and also, you know, to try and bring something new on board, not just the same old. And that's pretty much where we've landed with our new brand, Cove. So Cove is all about pushing a refill model and a reusable bottle. So I'll take you through Cove. It's pretty simple, but there are a couple of different components. So it's basically, as I said, it's about, you know, natural ingredients, of course, but it's about more than that. It's really focusing on the packaging. So there are two components to Cove. There's an aluminium bottle, which is purchased as a one-off purchase at $10. So that's already more than 3x the category price. It's a bit of a hefty, you know, sort of entry for the consumer. But I'll come back to the bottle in a minute. And then there's refill packs. And the refill packs are really simple. You refill, add water, and away you go. So I'll talk a little bit more about those. But as you can see, with the refill packs, we've used flexible plastic. So we've gone from using PET, highly recyclable, to flexible plastic, which is obviously a whole lot less plastic, but, you know, quite different to the previous model that we're using in Earth Choice. So why are we using flexible plastic? Well, obviously there's, you know, they're very lightweight, so, you know, it's a low energy to produce as well. And then we partnered with Reusable to ensure the recyclability of these products. But when you look at, you know, we come back to that initial maths problem I gave you, is that you've got a trigger which is 22 grams of non-recyclable plastic, and these pouches weigh about 10 grams each. So if you forget about the bottle and everything else, you know, an absolute worst case scenario, you know, using just that plastic pouch and throwing it in the bin and it ends up in landfill is still a much better outcome than, you know, the whole trigger and the whole bottle. But then if we, you know, take into account the current recycling system, and, you know, even if we had world-class recycling system rates, you've got, you know, 42 grams of plastic in a bottle, that, you know, even in the best system, only 50% of that is actually going to be recycled. So that's the idea with the pouch, is that it's the best option now. So we're going to keep innovating, we're going to keep looking at other things, but that's really, you know, the best option available, or that we found available to us at this point in time. So I'll talk a little bit more about how it works, because I mentioned that it's simple, you just add water. So that brings us to the other things. That we didn't just look at, you know, how do we create change in packaging and how do we have a great high-performing product, but what are the things that just don't make sense about this category as well? And one of the things is that most cleaning products are actually 80% or 90% water. So we took this opportunity in changing format to actually change that element as well. So we have an amazing team of chemists, development chemists, came up with a highly concentrated formula, about 4 times more concentrated than a standard product. So instead of us putting water in the bottle and then shipping it to the DC and then shipping that water to the retailer and then you carrying it home, we've just taken the water out and you just add it at home. Simple. You get the same performance, the same outcome, but the footprint is so much smaller because you know, we can fit a whole lot more in a truck. We, you know, aren't shipping around so much water. So it made sense, you know, to hit our environmental, you know, impact in more than one way than just plastic packaging as well. So, you know, transport emissions and even things like storage space, we found consumers really excited to, you know, just have a small pouch that doesn't take up, you know, the whole, you know, bathroom cupboard. So the last thing I'll talk about was the bottle, coming back to the bottle. So, you know, if we go back to that key problem at the start, it was really about people not valuing the materials that they use in everyday life. And that's the insight that drove the look and feel of the brand. So this project started as an Earth Choice project. It was something that, you know, was actually going to be branded Earth Choice. We didn't think about changing the brand. But as we got into the development of the product and everything and started to learn these insights, you know, like John was saying, it's really about what the consumers are looking for and, you know, what are the things that are going to make them change their behavior. So, you know, Earth Choice has a certain kind of cheap and cheerful vibe to it, and there's limitations there that, you know, we really just can't bend. So we looked around at other brands that have, you know, kind of done this well. So one of them was Voss Water. We took a lot of inspiration there. You know, it's a commoditized product. You know, they threw it in a nice cool glass bottle and probably stopped a whole bunch of people from just throwing plastic away. So, you know, just from a design perspective, they inspired people to make a better environmental choice. And then the other one we looked at that we're a big fan of is Keep Cups. Thanks, Jamie and Abigail there. You know, one of our favorite brands, but, you know, that's a brand that is, it's a cool brand that people feel really passionate about, and that actually helps, you know, make an environmental impact. So that was something that we wanted to try and model some of those cues as well. And that's where Cove came in. We created a new brand. We use aluminium material because there's a design element that, you know, adds to the sort of, you know, change in the innovation. It breaks that wall of plastic that you see in the supermarket aisle. And, you know, it basically gave us that, you know, from that insight with the consumers, you know, we looked into a whole bunch of different materials, but we found that not only do consumers, you know, think the aluminium product looked better, but it was also perceived to be a better product from an environmental perspective. They, you know, believed that it had a higher recyclability rate, and the numbers back that up as well. So about 70% of all aluminium ever produced is still in use today, compared to plastic at, you know, around 9%. So we designed a bottle and a brand that really offered good design, but the goal was to inspire people to keep the product and keep using the system instead of throwing it away. You know, the whole thing works if you just sell the little refill pouches, but it doesn't work to the consumer and it doesn't work to the retailer. So we needed something that was going to really hook people in, get people excited, and build a story that, you know, gets people on board. So yeah, that's Cove. That's pretty much the way we got there. If you have any questions, pop them in, and yeah, we'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
Yeah, fabulous. Thank you, Brent. That's great. I think one of the things I'm consistently hearing is it's about a value perception to the packaging. You know, the same thing that Jean was talking about in his session, and you've just mentioned there as well. If people perceive that there is a value and it's something that is aesthetic that they want to display and have obvious around the house, then I think the motivation for that sort of thing changes the perception of what packaging is about, really. So it's about shifting that sort of attitude, I guess. And so great, thank you for that. Again, we're going to hold those questions off to the end. We've got a whole load of them coming through, so I hope you're happy to hold on for a few minutes, and we'll come to those at the end. The third person that I would like to introduce to you today, and Brent just touched on it there, Jamie Forsyth, who is no stranger to this game, as one of the founders of Keep Cup with Abigail, his sister, who we know very well in the APCO world. Jamie has moved on to other focus areas in the last little while, and interestingly, from my perspective, the food service aspect is always a very interesting space, and I think the systems element of the model that Jamie's going to talk to us about today is a really interesting area for a lot of different applications. I think it's a good place to start and a nice place to sort of move on from. So Jamie's been in this space for a long time and has an awful lot of experience to bring to the conversation, and he, through the efforts of his work over the years, has probably avoided around 9 billion single-use items going to landfills. So I think he's very well versed to discuss this topic today. So Jamie, I'll introduce you and hand over to you, and you can tell me when you'd like to move your slides.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you for having me. Thanks for pointing out I've got all the grey hair to match with all these brands. So up on the screen is a little list of all the brands that I've designed and developed. They all are around reuse. Everyone is obviously familiar with Keep Cup, but today I'm actually going to talk to you more about ReturnR, which is a brand I'm working on at the moment. Hopefully by the end of it, I'm going to empower you guys with some ideas around how to design products and also implement products within this reuse space and within a share scheme based on the learnings that we've had. ReturnR is about 1.5 years old. We have a number of products in the range, and we've made some great inroads, a lot of big mistakes. So hopefully I can circumvent some of those for you guys. And at the end, hopefully you'll be empowered with a few ideas about maybe things within your business or industry that could potentially be part of a share or reuse scheme. So I put this up just to make it clear that I am all about reuse, okay? It's what I've driven now for 12 years, with Keep Cup being the first point. It's been very successful. Reuse is obviously an order of magnitude better than any type of recycling or other scheme. They're not in the same stratosphere. Recycling is obviously always part of a mix, but it's the end part. And I think people ought to focus heavily on how much use happens between the starting point and that end point. When we look at and design products, we're looking for around about 10,000 uses. So it's a big ask, but it has the most consequential environmental impacts. So, I suppose the question quickly is why? And the main reason why is that the embodied energy and materials that go into making a product, obviously, the more cycles you have, the more impact that has. I think there's generally some issues around the idea of recycling, in the fact that people are unsure how to do it, they don't trust the system, and recycle rates for most products in Australia are pretty horrendous. So ReturnR, the business, is a circular economy business that shifts the logic of personal ownership of reusables to the idea of a shared pool. Now, this is important because it's a deviation away from previous businesses that I've launched, such as Keep Cup. Keep Cup is clearly a successful business, both environmentally and financially, and it lives on the fact that basically it creates a product that's very fit for purpose, that people choose and themselves as a consumer. They choose it in their materials, their size, their design. They learn to love that product. And it's a very simple and effective way of being reused within a system. As we move through this little talk here, and you'll have seen from both Brent and Sean, working within a circular economy business and working across a range of products is diabolical in terms of how difficult it starts to become. So with Keep Cup and coffee, the solution is pretty simple. Its original design mandate was to outperform a paper cup. They come in standard sizes globally, so this is a very low bar to meet in terms of designing a product. Once you start to move into areas such as food service, grocery, pantry style items, health and beauty, you start to create this huge range of needs from both supply chain end and consumer end that are very, very difficult to meet. And herein lies the challenge. So, like what we do at ReturnR is we're obviously a brand, but we prevent the production, consumption, and landfill created by single-use packaging by designing and engineering reusable products and reuse systems, okay? We spent a lot of time on the product design elements, considering the front to back supply chain. And then our designs are proprietary. Obviously, we design registrations, patents, and those sorts of things, but we try and create them open source because we don't feel like we've got all the answers to all the uses. So we often co-brand, we collab. So we often do, we'll modify or design from scratch products for certain brands. And we allow integration of our product into all types of schemes, which I will try and introduce you to some ideas around how people and how we have tried to introduce reuse schemes. Okay, so here's a little very, very brief rundown on the type of reuse schemes that are happening. So the first one is item deposit, right? And this is a very, very simple scheme. It's how ReturnR launched. So the idea is that ReturnR supplies product, let's say, to a food service business, cafe or a restaurant, and we charge that out at a cost kind of rate, which currently in Australia is $6. The cafe or restaurant allows their customer to borrow that product from them, and they pay them a $6 deposit. The customer takes that product out, they can use it within their own environment, and once they're finished using it, they can return that product to any partner within the network. When they return it, they get that $6 back. So it's free for the customer to use. ReturnR in this circumstance generates its revenue from the partner network, who is basically not incurring the cost of single-use packaging, and obviously has all the branding exercise as part of it. and in this circumstance, the benefits to this system are that it's very simple to implement. It's very simple to understand. The transaction is very, very transparent. And there is a decent value proposition to the customer because effectively they get access to what would be a retail value product of between $25 to $40. And they get that for just leaving a deposit of $6. The question is, why would customers return it? Why are they bringing it back? We don't have a tracking system, but they bring it back because there's always another one available, and they can always exchange a cup or a bowl or a canister for another cup or bowl. The deposit is the same across all systems. This allowed us to launch. We have about 20,000 bowls that are in circulation right now. Cups are new, canisters are new, and they are all now starting to circulate around more. We are starting to push from food service into grocery. So we've got, there's 26 products in our range now, and we're starting to move more into a wider range. And this starts to lead into the next type of reuse system, which you do see out there, which is another free to use system for the customer, where the customer basically borrows the product for free using some type of technology like an app. It records them taking it away. And then if they don't return it within a certain space of time, they're charged for the value of that product. This has some benefits. It's still for free for the user. It does not incur costs to the partner, i.e. the restaurant, but it does create some friction because obviously you need to have the app to use the product. And you know, that can be slow and difficult to implement because it's one of those two-part platform type things. The third one I've got there is membership by subscription. So this, once again, is a technology play where you basically have some type of tracking to track your products moving around. It probably is the right choice down the line, as long as your value proposition to the customer is really, really strong, i.e. you've got a lot of products that they can borrow, and when they pay a monthly membership or subscription to your service, they're not just borrowing one little product, they're borrowing a range of stuff, and you allow them to borrow a range of stuff. So, you know, you might pay a monthly fee of $10, it allows you to borrow up to 20 products, and you can cycle them constantly. So this is not a bad system because it does generate revenue from the end user, whereby a lot of the other types of reuse systems that I've mentioned, basically it's a free ride for the consumer, and effectively there is a larger pool of potentially revenue paying customers, and that allows you to have a more serious revenue stream. The fourth one I've got in there is basically what we call a micro pool, which is where businesses, mainly corporate offices in our experience so far, effectively brand up a range of products for themselves, which they pay for outright. And that pool of assets is shared amongst the staff, okay? So rather than giving every single staff member a keep cup, what you would do is you would have a smaller pool of a range of different things, which staff basically borrow, take out, fill up, return, put in the dishwasher, and then back onto that station that you see there. This is a really neat little system. It certainly is probably the most efficient in terms of its environmental credentials because you have a smaller pool of products that cycle more times. It's a bit tricky in the COVID age with offices shut down, but I suspect that this little idea will get quite a lot of traction in the future. So now I'm going to give you the sort of DNA of how we see reusable products and how we basically design them based on our experience of how you meet the needs of this huge range of needs from the supply end right through to the customer end. So it was noted before with both Brent and Sean that people are not going to they're not just going to do it for the environment. It's just not enough, okay? You need to deliver more value. Your proposition needs to be super strong. So in ReturnR's case, we we wrap together basically three things: the zero waste, the beautiful products. So, you know, like having them really fit for purpose. So like in this example on the screen, this is a canister, okay? It can be used across a range of different products. It can be used for storing coffee beans, ice cream. It can be used for hot products in food service, such as soup, far noodles. Like, it has a multi-purpose, essentially, backbone, which is the canister. That is the shared element. It's made of stainless steel. It's twin-walled. That allows for insulation in terms of transit and being able to hold, if it's hot, from the outside. It also creates a very smooth interior and exterior surface, which allows for cleaning. ReturnR does not share the lid. And the reason why we don't share the lid is because we feel it can't be made of a robust enough material. We want to make it a beautiful object, and it also has the mechanics. So it's a far more difficult part of the object to clean and keep sanitary. And splitting the reusable element into two parts obviously creates a customer service issue around the issue of a part being missing or damaged or that sort of stuff. And keeping this proposition, the value of it low so that you can reach a large audience, is one of the serious challenges. So working from the left, we have, it's a molded cardboard lid that you see on that product. That allows for supply chain and high volume to basically pack, and they can put that lid on. The tag goes on a bayonet style hook, which then allows for branding in retail, because we don't want anyone to brand the outside of that canister, because one brand does not want to get a product that has another brand's details on it. The tag itself can then move to the consumer. The consumer chooses to buy a reusable lid. We have a range. That in that image there, that's a clear Triton lid, which is a really nice object for storage in home. And then that tag can effectively move from the supply chain end through to the in-home end to basically try and organise your pantry. So we want you to stack up a whole range of objects that has a branded tag on it that allows for a really beautiful look. There's a lot of needs to be met in the terms of the design of your product, and obviously some of the super challenges are moving that brand across from basically the information you need at point of sale right through to trying to keep it in-home on shelf, which is of value to brands. Making the product super easy for both the supply chain. So our products are probably the only twin-walled nestable product that I've ever seen on market. So we've got a small footprint in manufacturing and a small footprint when the consumer finishes with it at their end. So then just something quickly around like what products are suitable. We target products that have a high value for the disposable. So there's no point in targeting a coffee cup, let's say, because coffee cups are so cheap and they're already well serviced, let's say, by Keep Cup, and having a reuse scheme is obviously really difficult around a cup because it's hard to provide the value. On the other hand, when you look at, let's say, single-use coffee bag, it's got multiple layers, so it's an environmental nightmare. It has a degassing widget, okay? This is very expensive to the packers. So it's now it's a great target to put a reusable product in. So identifying those products where those two things are happening, this is a really sweet spot to get a reusable to replace it, because there's value that you can basically drag out of that market. Many smaller roasters are, let's say, paying $1 per disposable bag. So if you can give them a reusable that basically costs them nothing, you can take that dollar value, which is now something that can potentially be viable. I'll finish up just with my last slide, which is just I'm super open to questions. I'll tell you absolutely everything I know. I certainly don't think I've got it all right, but I've got a little bit of experience, and it seems crazy for people to make the same mistakes. If you're out there looking for partners, or you've got product ideas that you would like to see to go to market, then you can contact me either on that email or through LinkedIn. Thanks, everyone.
Fantastic, Jamie. Thank you so much. We haven't got a lot of time left. Where that was a full session, and I hope a lot of people have been inspired by that. There are a couple of kind of general questions that have come through that I might just ask you maybe to respond to. One of the areas that we've been looking at a lot recently has been life cycle assessment, and there are a few questions just coming through around I guess the work that has been done on some of these designs in terms of a life cycle assessment evaluation of the way that they will perform. Shall we go through in the order that we started? Perhaps, John, shall I start with you?
Yeah, definitely. Such a great question, and actually a requirement for the brands that jumped on board first. For Loop, they said, prove the concept and make sure that there's a positive impact on the environment. So we did life cycle analysis before launching the platform, and we're also doing more LCAs on a regular basis. And what we basically, if you compare like recycling with reuse, like recycling is also very energy intensive. So you need massive trucks to go on the road, like pick up the rubbish or recyclables. It's sent to a MRF, so material recovery facility. So you have a mechanical sorting happening. Once the recyclables are sorted, they're sent to processing facilities that would be like shredding, melting down the plastic. Then it's sent to a packaging manufacturer. So everything adds up, and so recycling is has a significant footprint, even if it's much better than landfill. Whereas like reuse would be lighter, so it goes straight from the consumer to a warehouse, and within the same facility you have the checking of the goods, the washing, and then it's sent directly to the brand. So it's a much shorter system. And what we saw through the LCAs is that on average, if consumers reuse their packaging over like between 2 and 3 times, that's the sweet spot. So that's where we break even and where the reused packaging is more beneficial than a disposable product. And the packaging that we push through the platform, they intend to be reused at least like 100 times. So the bare minimum is 10 cycles, but we tend to be closer to 100.
Fantastic. Yeah, certainly a big part of that process. Brent, do you guys work with LCA in that context as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Nature Organics, we're working through a few different LCA formats. But yeah, I mean, I think with our Cove concept, one of the things is that it's very different to the Lucas, where the main change is obviously materials, and then the impact is kind of easier to calculate without needing to understand the whole change in behaviour and different systems and that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, we've looked extensively into these details to make sure that everything we're doing is working towards the best environmental impact. And it comes back to that: what's your break-even point? What's the payoff period, and how many uses do they need to get out of it? So we've done extensive life testing on our triggers to make sure that they do have the durability to hit those payback periods.
And I guess as part of that sort of ongoing monitoring that you talked about doing, those are the sorts of things that are reconsidered as time goes by. Yeah, the opportunities come up. Jamie, LCA in your world, are you?
Yeah, so Return is a bit new for an LCA, but I have commissioned an LCA before for Keep Cup.
Yes.
Anyone who tells you that their break-even point is around 2 or 3 is talking rubbish. Keep Cup was 17. It's an LCA. It's publicly released. Look it up on Google. It's peer-reviewed. Okay, so if it's not peer-reviewed, it does not count. People must put their LCA out online for everyone to scrutinise to ensure it's correct.
Absolutely agree. Yes, certainly the advice we're offering as well in terms of our resources. Look, I'm conscious that we're on our last moment. Gentlemen, what I might try and do is take some of these questions that we've had from people today and perhaps send them through to you for further responses that we can feed back to the audience a little bit later on. I thank you so much to our three speakers. I'm hoping that that's given our audience some great inspiration. There's some real insight there into some of the challenges that are faced, but you know, I think we're in a space where consumers are very aware and interested in these new models of things, and I think we're you know, striking while the iron's hot in a lot of these situations. So hopefully that's inspiring others to take on that advice as well, and learnings from what you guys have been doing, and apply that to their own circumstances. So thank you so much for your time today. We are very grateful for your participation, and we look forward to seeing you guys and all the rest of the audience out there again very soon. Thanks for joining us today, and happy rest of Wednesday. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you
Thanks,
all.
guys. Cheers.